Pokemon collecting is exciting. You have profits and growth and they seem to be everywhere. But behind the hype, there are actually a few critical pitfalls that can quietly destroy your collection along with its future potential. And in this video, I'm gonna show you the biggest pitfalls collectors fall into and why avoiding them is a good idea. Now, collecting Pokemon has its benefits. And I mean, as of 2025, more people have entered the hobby than ever before, and we're seeing collectors really jump in now. And the main reason people love collecting Pokemon is because there actually is quite a high chance that your collection can climb in price. I mean, the heart of collecting isn't about, profits and making money, though there is something cool that collectibles can also increase in price. And personally, I think it makes them a little bit more exciting. I mean, I think for millennials and Gen Z, a lot of us grew up with the thought that, hobbies are hobbies and work is work. And I think this new wave of, investing in collectibles and having these alternative investing forms has become really popular. And I personally think it's a little bit of a rebellion because we're all saying, hey, all the things that we loved in our childhood matter. And that's kind of playing out in real time. Though the first pitfall we need to speak about is buying graded cards from non-reputable grading companies. Now, I mean, experienced collectors don't really fall for this mistake because, it does take some time to learn this, though it's very, very common for newcomers. There's a lot of grading companies out there, and a lot of people can get tempted to purchase a 10 rated slab from a smaller graded company because it's so much cheaper. But here's the thing about grading. It's not actually about who grades the cards most accurately. It's more about who maintains the status quo in the market. The big grading companies hold trust of collectors worldwide, which means their slabs consistently carry higher value and they're far more liquid when it comes to selling. Smaller companies might give out more 10s, but the market doesn't actually treat those 10s the same way. And that's why you can actually see the price differences between 9 grades and 10 grades. I mean, sometimes a 10 grade can be 5 or 6 or even 10 times more of the price than a 9. So it's very important that if you're going to buy a graded card, you should stick to the reputable companies such as PSA, BGS, or CGC. I mean, while a cheaper slab might look like a good deal, the reality is you're often buying something that won't really hold long-term value. And it's kind of weird because I'm a real big supporter of, small businesses and new business coming about. But when it comes to investing in collectibles, it's also, you got to have a realistic view of it, right? Because if you're buying, cheap slabs of, non-reputable companies, sure, your card may be protected, sure, you may get a grade, but it's more of a vanity metric. When you buy with a reputable company, you're not just getting a vanity metric, you're also getting something where the collective cohort really appreciates that as well. So when it comes to selling, you're gonna get the best dollar you can get because it all comes down to the reputation of the grader. These grading companies, a lot of them have seen it all, and because of that, they've really refined their craft and they've also built up a very strong reputation. But of course, if you're gonna be buying graded cards, just make sure to be buying the proper graded cards rather than just trying to get a good deal for a vanity metric. Now, the second pitfall is not understanding print runs and reprints. So 2025 has been a year where reprints have pretty much lost all their meaning because traditionally a lot of collectors wouldn't over leverage on a new set too heavily because reprints were known to tank the market. For example, in early 2024, Japanese 151 was selling for something like 170 USD a booster box. Once the reprint happened, prices dropped down to as low as 57 USD per booster box. And this mentality was the standard because a lot of people kind of feared reprints. But something recently has changed because the fear of reprints crashing a set's value has literally left. That's not something that any collector really worries about anymore because people just inhale any product that gets restocks. And if a big reprint does hit the market, it pretty much gets sold out before a lot of collectors can actually open it and get those products. But this can actually change, and this new Pokemon hype is adjusting. And don't forget, Pokemon is also adjusting to this new hype. And Pokemon will eventually catch up with its printing demands. I mean, before the hype, Pokemon had a very good sense of printing demands for newer sets, but obviously the demand has outpaced the supply. But I do have a feeling Pokemon will catch up, and there will be a set that comes in the future where everyone just overspends way too much and then it's going to be sitting on the shelves for months. Obviously, that doesn't seem like the case at the moment, and it almost like right now, as I'm saying it, a lot of people watching will be like, that's such an unlikely scenario. But believe me, a time will return when sets will be able to just be bought in store again, and understanding this is crucial. Right now, it's a weird time for the Pokemon TCG because everything is sold out. If you don't get the first wave of a product, it's unlikely you're gonna get it for retail price, but that's really just right now. A lot of people are just seeing the present moment and they're just applying the same kind of rationale and the intent for the future. A big pitfall to not get kind of trapped into right now is thinking that this is just gonna last endlessly. There will come a time when, a big reprint happens, or, maybe a set isn't that interesting for a lot of collectors, and, it can change. A lot of people can leave the hobby. Maybe people won't find it that interesting anymore. You know, there's so many different scenarios that can play out. So that's why a big thing right now is, even though the fear of reprints is not a thing right now, eventually there will come a time where people over leverage and, you know, stock is sitting on shelves for a while. And that could be a point where it resets the hobby. I mean, is it going to come sooner rather than later? No one knows at this point, but it is something to keep in mind of. Now, while speaking about these pitfalls, something that we often avoid and is a pitfall for a lot of us is actually our sleep. That's why I want to cover today's video sponsor, which is Manta Sleep. So a lot of viewers on my channel know how passionate I am about health and well-being. And one aspect that a lot of us overlook is our sleep, which is actually one of the most important aspects of health. Manta Sleep are known for their sleep masks, and they've sent me a range of their products to try out with both the Manta Sleep Pro and the Manta Sleep Sound. The Manta Sleep Mask Pro fits super comfortably and has 100% blackout. Both my wife and I have used the sleep mask, and we've both said we couldn't believe how well it blocks out light. Though the Manta Sleep Sound is definitely a game changer. This comes with a USB-C charger and Bluetooth speakers. You can actually play white noise or calming music while sleeping, along with getting 100% deep sleep experience, and it actually makes a massive difference. One thing I noticed when using it is how comfortable the sleep mask is. Whether you're sleeping on your side or on your back, the design makes it comfortable either way. Now, if you want to try out any of these sleep masks, feel free to use my referral code for 10% off, which is currently appearing on screen. A massive thanks to Manta Sleep for sponsoring today's video. Now let's jump back into the video. Now, the third pitfall is selling your products without a goal in mind. So this one is actually based on my own personal experience, and I've actually learned a lot from this. So if I'm ever going to sell a Pokemon product or a Pokemon card in my collection, I always have a clear goal for the reason why I'm selling it. And this is actually something that I learned from a previous mistake I made. So back in 2017, I actually auctioned my complete in-box Soul Silver game on the Nintendo DS with a Pokewalker. So, you know, back here, I was just selling a lot of stuff for fun, pretty much. And I looked at my Pokemon Soul Silver and I decided, hey, I'm gonna just try auction this for fun. And, you know, I had a few other things that I was auctioning at the time. Anyway, I didn't really think anything of it. And I remember then just looking at my eBay, and I remember it sold for 72 AUD, which is around 50 USD. And I remember looking at that auction being like, whoa, what a crazy price. I didn't even expect that at all. I just auctioned this. I was not expecting that at all. Though, you know, now I know that a complete in-box Soul Silver game sells around 10 times more than what it sold for back in 2017. And here's the reason why this got me. When I sold Soul Silver back in 2017, yes, I got a great price, but the thing is, I just sold for the sake of it. The money I made from that sale wasn't actually meant to be used for anything in particular. It wasn't for a specific goal I had. I just sold it because, hey, I just felt like it. Now, I mean, I've sold a lot of items over the years, and plenty of them have gone up massively in price after I've let them go, but that's just part of the game. But this one with Soul Silver actually hurts the most, and the reason for that is because I sold it without a purpose. And that's why I've really learned it's much easier selling a collection or selling items in your collection if there's a specific goal or for a reason for the sale. And I mean, this is only from my own personal experience, but I've never felt really any regret selling a collectible when it's been for a specific reason. Because in my mind, I'm like, hey, I've got a goal that I want to achieve. I just sold this to, you know, achieve that goal. Hey, that's been completed. We move on. It served its purpose. So now if I'm ever going to be selling any of my collection, or if there's a collectible that I'm going to part with, I always make sure that I have a goal or there's a real purpose for the sale. And it's not just because, oh yeah, it's going to get a good price. Because, you know, I've realized if I do sell it and then that product, you know, doubles or triples or, you know, even quadruples as the years go on, there won't be that regret. Because, you know, a lot of people part with their collections. So if, you know, if you have a wedding, right, and you're selling your collection for a wedding, that's a great decision because, you know, it's going towards a goal. But, you know, what I've really found, if you do have other goals in life, you know, outside of collectibles, which I'm sure we all do, that if you do sell your collectibles to achieve those goals, there's a different energy to it. There's a better feeling about selling that way. And I think that's a really good way to go through it. Now, also, I just want to say, if you do have questions relating to Pokemon cards and collectibles, definitely feel free to ask them in my channel's Discord server. We have over 10,000 members and it's a great community. The server invite is in the video's description. Now, number 4 is constantly checking your collection's prices and making emotional moves on every little fluctuation. You know, this is a mistake you want to avoid. You don't want to just be checking card prices every single day. If you're just always looking at your collection daily and just tracking every small little price rise and price dip, you'll get burnt out pretty quick and you'll make emotional decisions based on that as well. One thing I think's real good advice for the hobby, if you do buy a collection, especially if you've got like an investment potential in mind, it's much better to just set and forget. Sure, it's important to have a good overview of the market as well, but you don't want to just be making these quick decisions. I see it a lot that, you know, when a card's in a big hype cycle, a lot of people just start buying it straight away. And, even on my channel, I'll see comments where like I'm talking about a card price and someone will say, hey, Phil, I just saw that card rising in price and I decided to buy it. And it's like, yeah, sure, you can do that if you want and if you really want it in your collection. But at the same time, are you just doing that because, the hype period is there? It's much better to wait it out and see if you like a card. I speak about this a lot on my channel and, a lot of my longtime viewers will know this. But if you're gonna purchase a Pokemon card, make sure you really want it in your collection. Or if you're thinking, hey, I'm gonna buy this certain Pokemon card because it's a good investment, that's where you kind of need to make sure that the love for the hobby comes in as well. Because, there's nothing worse than buying cards that you don't genuinely love and you don't even like the Pokemon or you don't like the artwork and you just buy it because you think it's gonna rise in price. That's where you'll get really salty within this hobby. It's much better to buy cards you actually want in your collection, and also they can tick that investment category as well. And that way you mix the best of both worlds. Now, the fifth pitfall you want to avoid is comparing your collection to others, whether this be friends or people online or anyone else. And this has actually spoiled a lot of good moments I've had because, I've sometimes been so proud of some of my collection. And then, maybe I can check social media or, I see a friend's collection and I can be like, oh, wow, my collection looks so pale in comparison. I mean, the game of collecting isn't a competition, and trying to compete with the Joneses is the easiest way to overspend on this hobby and also make bad decisions. One thing about collectibles that a lot of people don't speak about is that there's a lot of ego in collectibles. And the reason for this is because collectibles, to learn them well and to learn, deep market knowledge about them, it's actually quite complicated and it does take time to learn it. I don't think you can learn collectibles quickly. I think it takes months to even years to really understand how they behave. And when that kind of learning happens and when you really understand how they behave, a lot of people can get arrogant about that as well. And a lot of people, purchase their collectibles and then they really rise in price and then they feel maybe superior because it's like, hey, I bought that Fusion Strike booster box for, 150 US and now look at the price of it now. And because of that, then their collections can look really strong today. One thing you got to remember, right? A lot of people who have very valuable collections, they didn't pay today's market prices for them. The journey happened, they purchased it and they waited it out. The problem with a lot of newcomers that have entered right now is they're just chasing older sets, older booster boxes, and they're really overspending, and then they're trying to match their collection with others. But one thing that they're forgetting is that the person that you're trying to compete with or trying to match your collection with, they purchased a lot of those cards and a lot of those sealed products back for retail price. So instead of trying to chase older sets and try to catch up, just try make your own new lane with what's currently happening. Maybe a new set releases, or maybe there's a new set that you want to buy. It's much better to buy for retail price and wait it out rather than just try play catch up to, compete with the Joneses. And I've actually found it's much better to just be proud of your collection and, make it kind of work within your own way. But while all these pitfalls are common, something that's even more important is collecting on a budget. And if you're wondering how to collect Pokemon cards on a budget, I actually do reveal that in this detailed video right here. Within this video that's currently appearing on screen, I go over how to actually collect Pokemon cards on a tight budget. Definitely feel free to subscribe to the channel, click on the video that's appearing on screen, and I'll see you on the next video.